Good morning, everybody. This is Bob Iacchino from Path Trading Partners with your weekend update for stocks. Weekend Path Chat. It is March 26th, Sunday. So obviously this applies to tomorrow. Mike Arnold is here as well. Mike's actually going to bring up a handful of new stocks today, so I'm not going to go through the whole list because most of these, if you've been listening to the Path Chats, we've talked about what these stocks are and what they do, and quite a few of them you'll recognize anyway. But what we're seeing is, we've mentioned this a lot in the Futures podcast. I've mentioned it on TV on behalf of mine and Mike's research. You're looking at a lot of topping patterns in a lot of stocks, and we're getting a lot of topping patterns in financials. And if you refer back to our Futures Path Chats, you'll see that Mike is pointing out some topping price action patterns in the overall indices as well. So the couple of new ones that we found this weekend that Mike's going to talk about, WFAD, which is Washington Federal, which is a Seattle, Washington bank holding company and financial association. GBCI, Glacier Bank Corp. It is Kalispell, Montana. It's a medium-sized bank business. A lot of commercial lending at Glacier. ONB, which is Old National Bank Corp. Evansville, Indiana Regional Bank. BUSE, which is First Bussey Corporation. They're out of Champaign, Illinois. Guess what First Bussey Corporation is? Bank holding company for Bussey Bank, who does retail and commercial banking. FNB, you could probably guess what FNB stands for. Right now it's FNB Corporation, but they used to be First National Bank Corp. They're a financial holding company, again, that provides financial services to consumers, corporations, governments, and small to medium-sized businesses in the Pennsylvania area, or Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And Jack Henry and Associates, JKHY. Jack Henry and Associates provides technology solutions and payment processing services for financial services institutions in the United States and banks. They're out of Monet, Missouri. So Mike's going to talk about, when we did one of our scans, we came up with a lot of these stocks, and we already have, he's going to lead off the discussion with Citibank. So some of the majors, he'll kind of refer back to those, but we're seeing a lot of topping patterns, and again, refer back to our Futures Path Chat in terms of looking at what the overall indices are doing. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Mike because he has a lot to cover, so buckle in. Mikey, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Actually, I'm going to shift Citigroup to the end when we go through some of the big majors. I'm going to start with MNTX. This was based off a listener request to analyze this. We're looking on a close above 837, which did not happen. And our stop would be below the 721 level. Well, it reached where we would have hit the stop without it triggering. So this is all done. So we're not going to be watching any more of that. It did not ever trigger a trendline trade. Amazon, just keeping an eye on it. It hasn't been doing much. This is on a weekly basis. We're right against the R zone. If we do break down, watching for a pullback back to about 812. And it's still, if it were to pull back, if we were to have a major market pullback, we could see a major topping pattern in Amazon. Not that I'd short Amazon, not that we'd short it, but it would give us a big pullback for a great opportunity to always pick up shares of Amazon, which seems it wants to take over the world. Yelp, still massive potential weekly double, not triggered yet. Energy, this is a confirmed double top, but not triggered. It has not closed above the peak. So we're going to keep an eye on it, but it is a confirmed double top. NVIDIA, which did trigger, this is a lower probability one because it was against the rotation zone. It's now run up, but not to a level of a stop out yet. So we're going to keep an eye on this. It would have to close above 112.12 or trade through 114.72 for it to be a stop out. Logmein, which also triggered, ran up for a couple weeks, rolled back down, got below, down to the entry price again, then rallied above the base again, but still nowhere close to our stops, nothing to do there but sit on our hands. VMC triggered, boy, this is triggered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks ago. rallied back up. We got a first cross rotation zone. Now it's hit the stop reduction target. So our stop is going to go above this high right here, somewhere above the 125.27 mark. And that would be on a closing basis. And the full target is a 107.75. It's only a single target. FCX triggered, moved sideways 2 weeks in a row, nothing else to do there. Tesla, we don't talk about trendline trades a lot because they're a little more complex, but I'll throw in here an occasional one just to keep an eye on. A lot of people follow Tesla. If you want to learn more about our trendline stuff, I'll cover another one later. You can also go to our website. We have information up there on our website about how we do trend lines and how we trade them. If we do get a close above this trend line on a daily basis, we may see this potential gap fill, which would be the target. So you'd be targeting 273.51 and then a potential run up to an end of a clear path around 280.31. And your stop would have to go below the rotation zone. SEAS. This we were watching for a potential double. It was a confirmed double, not triggered. And now with this price action, it's now invalidated. So this is coming off the chart. It's no, we can't trade it anymore. FNSR triggered a couple weeks ago, ran down to 50, moved up slightly last week, but nowhere near the stop levels. So we look like we got the rotation zone rolling over. ARCB did trigger, paused last week. Now it's moving towards our stop reduction zone, 24.35, not hit yet, so nothing else to do there. KAMN, this has triggered this week. We had one hot top there, another top there. This is triggered. It could only be entered on some kind of pullback because reward to risk is not correct. So we're watching for a potential pullback and then a turn lower. SHO triggered, rallied up last week, reversed down, but it's having trouble getting below the flat rotation zone. Stop level still 15.45 on a closing basis, 15.65 on a trade through. TECK, also one that's triggered, moved up, just a doji week this week, nowhere near the stops, nothing to do there. KAI, this did move down to the stop reduction zone, so now your stop is going to be pretty much just above this high from this bar. So the high is 61.45, that's where your stop's going to be on a closing basis. So you've reduced your risk in that one. WAFD, now we're getting into some of these regionals and regional banks and holding corporations. This did trigger. Nothing else to do, but it did trigger. Stop, closing basis 34.53 and a trade through basis 35. GBCI did trigger. Stop 36.26 on a closing basis, 36.80 on a trade through, another regional. ONB triggered. Stop on a closing basis 17.95, on a trade through basis 18.15. BUSE did not trigger, but it confirmed the double top. This, we needed a close below 28.87. It closed at 28.92, but another regional topping pattern that came very close to triggering. FNB did not trigger, but confirmed a massive double top. Nothing to do here, but keep an eye on it. JKHY, this triggered on a daily basis a few days ago and just hit the stop reduction zone. So this would be a stop above 94.41 on a closing basis. Another nice little, this is a shorter term one, daily one. Citigroup, nothing to do yet, but this is and we all know what Citigroup is, very large bank, very big potential double top. I'm going to be keeping an eye on this because this is foreboding for the market. If this were to trigger, we could be having a longer term top put in and expect a bigger pullback in the market if this were to trigger, and the trigger would be on a closing basis below 55.23. We do, if this were to trigger, the rotation zone would also be clearly out of the way. Goldman Sachs, this is not a double. This does not fit our rules, but it is a very interesting trend line trade. We'd have to get a close below the 225 level, And then we could see easily a pullback to the 215 as a first target, and then longer term targets for a bigger run lower. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on that also. Now, if you were trading these banks, you would not want to get in all of these, especially all the regionals. You want to pick one. It depends on your portfolio size, but one or two. And you don't want to lump everything all into the same thing, because then you're not diversified. I'll turn that back over to Bob. Maybe he can have a comment on that, just from a trading perspective, about trying to take everything in the same sector that's all setting up a topping pattern. That's all I had for you guys. I will talk to you later. Back to you, Bob.
Thanks, Mike. As Mike gives you the initial targets and the stops for these things, you need to kind of do reverse math based on your portfolio size. You don't want to take every single one of these. You don't want to pick the ones that you think you can make the most money off of. You want to do sort of the reverse math and say, okay, the stop on this one is in this area. I know this from watching these path chats before. That's a little too much risk for me, so I'll put this one aside. This one is within my risk parameters. I can put on a decent amount of shares without overweighting my trading portfolio toward the banks, etc. You want to do sort of a full risk profile. We can't do that for you, especially not in path chats. If you want to, well, I'm not going to say that, but if you want to pay a huge price to us, we can do it for you, which you don't want to do. So you have to kind of do that work yourself. We can't help you with that. Now, here's the thing about what Mike has on the screen right now with this Goldman Sachs. That does not fit our parameters for a high probability double top. It is two tops. If the overall market financial sector falls, Goldman Sachs is likely to fall as well. But when Mike says it's not high probability, it means we don't have a high degree of confidence in the predictability of where it's going to go versus where it could stop us out. So it is not within, it just doesn't fit our rules. And that has a lot to do with how high the right-hand top is. We have very specific rules about this. Now on Path Chats, we talk about doubles because they're very easy to give you guys. We have other patterns. We have a trend line pattern here. We can't go through all of the rules on every stock on trend lines here. This particular trend line pattern, if it triggers, will also be a short. It's another kind of short pattern that we trade. There's long trend line patterns, but in this particular case, it's a short trend line pattern. If that triggers, there's just too many moving parts. We do, however, teach these trend lines. If you go find it on our website, it's available for you there, but you're going to have to put in some time to learn those if you want. So again, don't overweight short in banks. It has as much to do with your risk tolerance, the size of your portfolio, and then in terms of choosing the ones you want to short the best, you choose the ones with the risk that fits, not with the reward that you want. Don't look at your bills and say, if this particular double works, I'll be able to pay off this bill. That is absolute trading suicide. If you want to know what we think about the overall market for the week in terms of the economic calendar, watch our FX Path Chat, which is already posted. And then Mike covers all of the indices if you just want to short the indices based off of what banks trigger or when banks trigger. You can do that based off of what Mike gave you in our futures Path Chat. Thanks for watching. If you like what we're doing, click like and subscribe, and we will talk to you guys soon. New Money Path Podcast is out as well, by the way. Check that out on our website, pathtradingpartners.com. Cheers, guys.